Okay, think about this. What's that one thing so deeply American, it kind of inspires this intense loyalty, shapes leaders, and, well, thrills millions of us every single year? It might feel like this untouchable thing, woven right into our towns and cities, but right now, it's facing what some are calling an unprecedented threat. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really jumping into the fascinating and, let's be honest, incredibly complex world of college sports. We're going to unpack a really relevant, very recent document, an executive order from the White House, dated July 24, 2025, and the title is pretty direct: Saving College Sports. Our mission here is, well, to boil down the key arguments, the big concerns, and the solutions they're proposing in this document. We want to make sense of something that honestly impacts everything from the pro drafts and local economies right down to, believe it or not, our Olympic success. Okay, let's dig in.
Yeah, and it's really crucial we understand the stakes here because, as you'll hear, the argument is this isn't just about Saturday games. It's framed as, well, a core part of American culture, a huge pathway for opportunity for, hundreds of thousands of young people every year. So this deep dive will break down the executive order's view on, what the problem is and what it's trying to do. Plain language, so you can get the big picture fast.
Right, so let's start at the beginning, the foundation. Because the executive order kicks off by calling college sports a uniquely American institution. And it really lays out why they matter, according to the document. First up, the educational and leadership side. We're talking over 500,000 student athletes benefiting each year. And get this, almost $4 billion in scholarships annually.
$4 billion, that's a huge number.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Think about it, that's potentially life-changing support and opportunity for, 500,000 young people. But it's not just about the individuals, right? The document stresses the massive economic and cultural ripple effects. Beyond those huge televised games, college athletics apparently provide substantial support to local economies. And for a lot of communities, it says college sports are an indelible part of family activities, pastimes, and culture. Like a real community anchor. Weekend traditions.
Part of the fabric.
Yeah. And then there's the part that really jumped out at me, their role in, international success. The order shares some pretty surprising stats about the U.S. Olympic team. Get this. 65% of the 2024 U.S. Olympic team were current or former NCAA varsity athletes.
65%.
Wow, wait, if you broaden that to just collegiate athletes overall, it jumps to roughly 75%.
75. Okay, so it's a massive pipeline then.
Clearly, it's positioned as this powerhouse for developing top-tier talent, which, the order notes, led to the U.S. getting 126 medals in 2024, leading the medal count for the 8th straight Summer Olympics. It's pretty hard to argue with that kind of impact.
You really can't.
And then beyond just the medals, the order points to leadership development. It says athletes report better outcomes during and after college. It gives examples too, like a substantial majority of female execs at the biggest U.S. companies played sports, often college level. And of course, it mentions legion examples of business leaders, former presidents, people who played college sports. The document is pretty direct, saying America's system of collegiate athletics plays an integral role in forging the leaders that drive our nation's success.
What's really insightful there, I think, is how the order implicitly shifts the frame. It's not just presenting college sports as, an extracurricular. It's framing it as critical national infrastructure for talent, for leadership. And that framing is key, right? It sort of legitimizes federal interest in a way that, say, just pure entertainment wouldn't.
That makes sense.
It's arguing these institutions are, well, more than just fun on a Saturday. They're fundamental to national success, according to this perspective.
That's definitely a powerful argument they're making, but, playing devil's advocate for a second, some people argue that the whole idea of amateurism was always kind of a legal construct to protect NCAA revenue. Does the order grapple with that history at all? Or is it really just focused on the now?
That's a fair point. The order doesn't really dive deep into that historical debate about amateurism itself. Instead, its focus is very much on the current situation as a recent dramatic shift away from what it portrays as a maybe more stable system before. So it's about reestablishing what it sees as the right guardrails rather than questioning the historical basis of the model itself.
Wow.
Which brings us right to the problem they identify.
Right. So with that understanding of how important the order says college sports are, it makes that next statement even more stark. It declares that this very future is now under unprecedented threat. And the document calls this threat a sea change. Basically, waves of recent lawsuits have wiped out limits on athlete compensation, pay-for-play recruiting inducements, and transfers between universities.
Yeah, that sea change, it's really a cascade of legal shifts that have totally reshaped things. Let's break down what the order points to. First, there's name, image, and likeness, or NIL. Everyone's heard about NIL. So after that 2021 Supreme Court antitrust ruling against the NCAA had to change its rules. Players could now get NIL money from third parties, for endorsements, appearances, that kind of thing.
Okay, that part seems straightforward enough.
But here's the key distinction the order makes. It says the guardrails, the rules designed to make sure these were legitimate market value payments for actual services, like an endorsement. Those guardrails were eliminated through litigation. That's the core issue for the order. It's not NIL itself, but the lack of rules ensuring it stays tied to market value instead of becoming, direct pay.
Ah, I see the distinction they're drawing.
Exactly. And besides NIL, other limits on players transferring between schools also got struck down by courts. So athletes can move much more freely now, almost like free agency in the pros.
So what are the consequences of all this? According to the order, it paints a pretty chaotic picture. An out-of-control, rudderless system. It talks about universities and their donors basically getting into bidding wars for the best players who can change teams each season. We see headlines about this constantly.
All the time.
And it's not just the schools. It mentions over 30 states passing their own NIL laws, creating what it calls a chaotic race to the bottom. States trying to give their big teams a temporary edge.
A legislative scramble.
Yeah. And the money involved. It's just wild. The order says players at some universities will get more than $50 million a year, mostly in football, the big revenue sport. It even gives examples, like the team that won the 2024 championship. Their players were reportedly being paid around $20 million total that year. And for 2025, one school's football players are apparently set to get $40 million, including some revenue sharing. I mean, wow.
Those numbers are eye-watering.
Right. It makes you wonder, if that's the reality, how can this order realistically pull things back? Is it kind of suggesting that the scale of the money itself is what breaks the old model?
That seems to be precisely the underlying concern in the order. It views that level of payment, especially if it's not tied to real endorsement value, as fundamentally changing what college sports are. And the order describes this big ripple effect from these bidding wars. This system, it argues, it reduces competition and parity. But an oligarchy, just a few rich teams that can basically buy the best players, even taking top talent from smaller programs after each season.
Right, the rich get richer.
Exactly. But the really big worry highlighted in the document, the one with maybe the broadest impact, is this need for donors to pour ever-escalating resources into football and basketball. It siphons away the resources necessary to support the panoply of non-revenue sports.
Ah, okay. So things like track, swimming, tennis, volleyball.
All of those. Without these guardrails, the order basically warns that many college sports will soon cease to exist, which forces a question, doesn't it? Are we treating the breadth of opportunity, the Olympic pipeline we just talked about, for just a couple of super high revenue sports? What does that mean long term?
Okay, so if that's the diagnosis, a system in crisis, potentially collapsing under its own weight, what's the proposed cure? How does the White House plan to, save it? This is where the executive order gets really specific. The administration's goal is stated very clearly. All college sports should be preserved and, where possible, expanded.
Yeah.
And the core idea, repeated often, is that college sports are not and should not be professional sports. They want to restore some kind of stability, some balance.
Exactly. And Section 2 of the order lays out specific directives to get there. And there's a really strong, clear emphasis on protecting women's and non-revenue sports. The main policy is that opportunities, scholarships, competition in women's and non-revenue sports must be preserved and, where possible, expanded. That's the guiding principle.
Okay, preservation and expansion. How do they plan to enforce that?
Well, it gets pretty detailed with revenue-based rules for the upcoming 2025-26 season. It sets different expectations based on how much money an athletic department brings in. So for the big players, departments with over $125 million in revenue last year, they should provide more scholarship opportunities in non-revenue sports than they did before, and offer the maximum roster spots allowed.
So pushing the wealthiest programs to invest more broadly.
Right. Then for departments over $50 million in revenue, they should provide at least as many scholarship opportunities as last year in those non-revenue sports, again, with max roster spots.
Maintaining the status quo, at minimum.
Yep. And for the smaller athletic departments, Those under $50 million or without big revenue sports, the order says they should not disproportionately cut scholarships or roster spots just based on whether a sport makes money or not.
So trying to protect opportunities across the board, regardless of budget size.
It's a very targeted approach, trying to redistribute the focus, you could say, and push the big programs to protect the smaller ones. The order also tackles revenue sharing, if universities do that with athletes. It says any system for sharing revenue must be designed to preserve or expand scholarships and collegiate athletic opportunities in women's and non-revenue sports.
Interesting. So tying athlete payments directly to supporting other sports.
And here's that critical nuance again, the one that's easy to get wrong. The policy clearly states third-party, pay-for-play payments to collegiate athletes are improper and should not be permitted by universities. Now, pay-for-play here means like direct cash just for playing or as a recruiting bonus. However, and this is the key, this does not apply to compensation provided to an athlete for the fair market value that the athlete provides to a third party, such as for a brand endorsement.
Right. So legitimate deals for actual marketing value are okay, but direct payments just to play are not. That's the line they're drawing.
That's the line, distinguishing fair market value NIL from what they see as improper pay-for-play.
Okay, so that's the policy vision. How does the administration actually plan to make this stick? What are the teeth behind it? The order mentions some enforcement ideas. It tells the Secretary of Education, working with others like the Attorney General, HHS, the FTC, to cook up an implementation plan within 30 days. And this plan should use all available and appropriate regulatory, enforcement, and litigation mechanisms. It sounds broad. Includes federal funding decisions, Title IX enforcement.
It's a potentially powerful toolkit, yeah, using the leverage of federal oversight and funding.
And there's more. The Secretary of Labor and the National Labor Relations Board are supposed to clarify the whole student-athlete status issue, trying to maximize the educational side. The Attorney General and FTC are also tasked with working to stabilize things through lawsuits and policies, protecting student rights and scholarships from unreasonable legal challenges.
Trying to create some legal stability.
And finally, it mentions consulting with the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee to protect that Olympic development pipeline we talked about. But, stepping back, how realistic is it to put these guardrails back up, given the court rulings, the money flowing, the sheer momentum of it all?
That really is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Fundamentally, all these actions are aimed at bringing back, as the order puts it, stability, fairness, and balance. The intent is super clear. Protect the student athletes, protect their scholarships, but also protect what it calls the special American institution of college sports itself. Make sure it survives and keeps playing its unique role. What this order really represents is a major federal declaration. It's saying the government intends to step into a space that's mostly been self-run or shaped by court cases. The real challenge, though, will be navigating those existing legal decisions and, frankly, the huge financial interests that are already deeply dug in.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. This deep dive, it really feels like it's showing us this core tension, right? You have this system, a cornerstone of American culture, this engine for talent, key to Olympic success, and it's just grappling with these massive fundamental changes around money and player movement. So what does this all mean for you listening? Whether you're a huge fan, maybe a parent of an athlete, or just someone interested in where American talent comes from. Well, this executive order lays out a very clear policy goal and a whole bunch of actions trying to put guardrails back around college sports. It wants to find that balance again between opportunity for athletes, keeping those non-revenue sports alive, and the whole educational mission. And it draws that really crucial line between legitimate endorsement deals, fair market value, and what it considers direct pay for play that could undermine the whole thing.
And that really leaves us with a big question to think about, doesn't it? Given everything the document outlines, this unprecedented threat, the rudderless system, and these pretty sweeping proposed fixes, what does the future actually hold for college sports? How might these changes really affect not just the big Saturday games, but the thousands of athletes in those other sports, and maybe even how we define amateur sports in America going forward? It's definitely a complex, fast-moving story, and this executive order is a really significant new development in it.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Saving College Sports Executive Order. We hope this conversation gives you some food for thought about the implications for your community, your favorite teams, or maybe just the whole landscape of talent development in the U.S.